Okay, hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Cousin Jonathan and Clyde the Rocketman Big Book Study. We're just two sober alcoholics reading, studying, and discussing the Big Book the way Joe and Charlie did back in the day. So let's start this meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the set-aside prayer. God, please enable us to set aside everything we think we know about ourselves, about alcoholism, about the 12 steps, and about you, so that we can have an open mind and a new experience. Please help us see the truth and teach us the truth. Amen. So, just to give you a little background on what we're doing here, in 1973, Joe McHugh introduced Charlie P. as the AA speaker at an Al-Anon convention. And Joe and Charlie soon discovered that they both shared a love for the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, traveling between their homes to discuss the Big Book became a regular event. Well, Clyde and Cousin Jonathan met in the Zoo Crew in 2022, and we discovered that we also share a love for the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So that's why we're here. We meet every Sunday at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern in this room, and we're studying the Big Book. So please have your Big Book handy to read along with us and take notes, and also to underline and highlight as we read. So we're going to be recording the audio of these meetings to share with others on our podcast, and it's recording now. So the purpose of this Big Book study meeting is to help you when meeting with a prospect, now called a sponsee, or talking about sobriety in general, because you want to be armed with the facts about yourself and the AA program. Freedom from alcohol comes through taking the 12 steps and working with others. Page 15 of the 12 and 12 says, AA's 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which, if practiced as a way of life, can expel the obsession to drink and enable the sufferer to become happily and usefully whole. How soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? So we suggest that you purchase a copy of the Big Book for future use. You'll want to underline, highlight, and write notes. So please order your AA literature directly from AA so that the money goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, and to ensure that you get a good copy. So we're not advocating rushing through the steps, but we do highly suggest that you have a sense of urgency in taking the 12 steps and having them become a way of life sooner than later. Pretend this is a matter of life and death. Actually, it is a matter of life and death. So once again, how soon do you want to be happy, joyous, and free? You can go to our website at thezoocrew.org to order your copy of the Big Book, as well as read it online. So the Big Book is our basic text and contains the full recipe for recovery. It's impossible to find a loophole in the Big Book that excludes you from being a member of AA. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pick up now. I want to do a quick summary. Where we left off last week is we learned about the main problem of the alcoholic centering in his mind, page 23, and there is a solution. But we started back on page 12, which is in Bill's story. So I just want to do a quick recap of what we covered last week, what we learned last week, and I'll cover the highlights. So what we saw when we finished Bill's story last week was on page 13, we counted through and saw where Bill took all 12 steps on that one page. He summarized his 12 steps he took on page 13. Then the next page, 14, he described his spiritual experience for us, and it was a big one. It resulted in permanent sobriety for him, okay? So we learned, he saw the 12 steps, he explained his spiritual experience. And then, so he checked into that hospital. This was when he had his last drink, December 11th or 12th. He checked into Towns Hospital. And we think he had his spiritual experience around the 14th or 15th. He checked out of that hospital on the 17th, I think it was. So within a matter of days, he explains that this thought, while he's still laying in bed, the thought came to him that other people could use what he learned and that he should work with others and help other people. So that thought came to him. And then it talks about how important it is to work with others, that it's imperative. And he talks about work and self sacrifice for others on page 14 and 15. And it also talks about how working with another alcoholic would save the day when he was struggling. So he stresses the importance of working with others. So that was Bill's story. And then we started reading There Is a Solution. And I just want to point out that the title of the chapter says it all. There is a solution. And that's what we're learning about now, the solution. So it starts out on, tells us about this fellowship in the first paragraph. We read about it, how it's indescribably wonderful. There exists among us this fellowship, this friendliness, this understanding. That's the group. That's the fellowship of AA. That's the Zoo Crew community as a fellowship. Okay. So that's an important part of recovery, but it is not the solution. Okay. So if we continue, what we read down below was the bottom of page 17. It says the tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution, a common solution. So there is a solution. That's why this chapter is called There Is a Solution. So then when we go to page 19, check this out. It tells us many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given to us? That's a question. How do we present the opportunity to recover to those that need it? And that was the question. Here's the answer. We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. And it says, we shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. So the answer is these 12 steps outlined in this book. That's the solution. That's what leads to the solution. So that's why they published the book. And then on the next page, page 20 and 21, they explain to us the three different types of drinkers. There's the moderate drinker who can take it or leave it, the heavy drinker who can quit if he really has to for a real serious reason. He could. It might be really difficult, but he could do it. And then there's the real alcoholic. And that tells us that we have lost all control. We just can't, once we start, we cannot stop. We've lost control of our drinking if we're a real alcoholic. And then we continued on. So they gave us on page 21 and 22 a whole bunch of different descriptions of, things that we do and what's wrong with us being alcoholics. And on page 23, we ended up reading that these observations, I'm going to go ahead and reread the last paragraph we read last week. And here's what it says. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. It says, therefore, this is key information here. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. It says, if you ask him why he started on that last bender, chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. So this would be a good place to pause. Is everybody clear on this about our problem centers in our mind? And we talked about last week, it gave us the information that we need to understand ourselves in the doctor's opinion about this phenomenon of craving. And once we succumb to this cycle of drinking and we've lost control, our problems become astonishingly difficult to solve. They pile up on us and we get restless and irritable and discontent, and we seek ease and comfort because we like the effect produced by alcohol. It calms us down, takes the stress out, take a couple of drinks, and boom, we're trapped in this cycle with this phenomenon of craving, and we can't escape. That's what's going on. Cuzin, would you like to comment on this problem centering in our mind?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Jonathan, and I'm an alcoholic. And everyone else here, please feel free to come in and comment on what we're reading. Welcome to Regina. I see she came in, and as well as Lalita and Kelly. So we're doing this together. And and me and you, Clyde, have discussed this before, and we were trying to figure out that sounds like the philosophy of a man with a headache who beats himself in the head with a hammer so he can't feel the ache. And I was trying to wrap my head around that and try and figure out what he was trying to say, but he's saying exactly that, that I couldn't even break that down. That is just pure insanity, a man who beats himself in the head with the hammer so he can't feel the ache. I must say that when Bill wrote this, this is one of those loophole proof statements there, you don't have to try and figure it out. It's just right there, in your face, So yeah, I love it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Loretta, Mama Bear, we're on page 23. And we're coming up on the actual solution. We're still learning. We're being more properly armed with the facts about ourselves as alcoholics, is what we're doing now. And they're just explaining, what's up with us alcoholics. The doctor's opinion, Bill's story. Now we're reading the first half of There Is Solution is just explaining more about us being alcoholic. Okay. And if anybody else
And
wants to
something,
share.
Clyde, yeah, you just mentioned something that we say all the time, and I didn't know this for a long time. But what are the facts? We say that we need to be armed with the facts about ourselves first, and about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the 12 steps. But the facts that I need to be armed with about myself when I sit down and talk with a prospect or a new person is, the fact is that I was selfish, I was self-centered, I was very dishonest, and I lived in fear, and those things caused me to suffer. And I needed to have a psychic change in order to recover. And I did that through following the suggestions that you guys have given, So those are the facts about me. That's the honest thing, the honesty that I need to be able to tell somebody else, yeah. So yeah, those are the facts that I needed to be armed with, because those are the things that I didn't know when I came in. I just thought I was screwed up. I had something morally wrong with me, and I could do it on my own. That was my old philosophy. I'm gonna figure this out because I'm a horrible person, and I'm gonna figure this out on my own. Yeah. So,
Okay.
what do you think about those being the facts that we need to be armed with? Did I hit it right? Those are the facts that I need to be armed with.
Yeah, well, the four big ones, the four big poisons for us alcoholics, and we're going to learn more and more about it, are selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Just what Cuzin said. Those are facts. And additional facts are that I have the phenomenon of craving. Oh, go ahead, Cuzin.
That wasn't him. That was me.
No, that wasn't me. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, please come on in
What's
and
up,
share.
Regina?
By all
I,
means.
I think it's so interesting that it says they sound like the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself upside the head with a hammer. So he can't feel the effect. That it sounds so crazy to me. Even the thought of it. Okay, I got a hammer in my hand, in my head. My head is aching now. I'm gonna take this hammer and I'm gonna hit myself in the head to try and fix this problem. It's almost like saying that I'm using this craziness, this insane mind to try to fix the problem. Well, I can't do that because the problem is centered in my mind. It's almost like if I have an automobile and I have this body, which I'm going to say my body is the automobile. And so the engine is broken down, it's messed up, and and I can't get where I need to go because of the malfunction of this mind, this engine. So I need a whole overall. I need a whole entire new mindset in order for this body or this mobile to operate correctly and go where it needs to go to do what it's supposed to do and be purposeful. And that only comes by taking the 12 steps. That just came to my mind that it's so crazy for me to try to use the mind that I have in order to fix the problem that I have, and the problem is in my mind. So I need help outside of this mind of mine, and I believe that comes from a higher power, from God. That's all I wanted to say, Clyde. Thank you.
Thank you, Regina, for sharing that. You're right. A broken mind cannot fix a broken mind. It must come from a power, a higher power, a power greater than that broken mind. Period. Anyone else have any comments before we continue? Okay. So we're on page 23 and we're learning more about us alcoholics. It says, I'm on the paragraph, the second complete paragraph toward the bottom of the page. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. Imagine that, an alcoholic telling the truth once in a while. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. Anybody relate to that? Did you ever feel like, somehow, some way I can figure out how to have a few drinks and get a nice buzz and just chill out and relax and feel good and not have all these negative consequences? Come on in and share, Mama Bear.
Thank you, Clyde. Thank you, Jonathan, for this broadcast. I really do appreciate it. I was able to definitely identify with this approach. My drinking career lasted for 30 years. I wish it was 30 days, but it lasted for 30 years. But the thing happened. I didn't really become. I didn't realize I was an alcoholic till I was 40, and that's when the drink really became a problem. And yeah, everybody gave up on me. I gave up on me. I just assumed this is the way I'm going to die. But when finally when my children's daddy passed away, that's when my higher power stepped in and and told me that I need to grow up and start being a uh, to make a difference in this world. I had to put down that drink because I knew that he loved me no matter what. But for me to be effective in this world, I had to put down that drink, and that's what you just read seemed to me. Thank you very much for letting me share. Peace out.
Thank you, Loretta, for sharing with us. We appreciate it. Hi, Tammy. Come on in.
Hello, I'm Tammy. I'm from Florida. This is probably my first time I'm actually talking. I've been coming to the Zoo Crew. I found you this crew, I'm amazed. I joined back in July 8th. I've been following every single day. I do a couple meetings a day. This is probably, I dabbled with AA, oh gosh, 2015. I have my big book right here. That was a gift to me back when I first started. And to God, I believe in my higher power, everything. These meetings to me are so much. I am following through. This is the most I've ever done in my life, and I just want to thank you for being there. This is my first time at your meeting, and I did find it because I jotted down, and I'm really just going to just keep following the steps and just doing what I got to do. When I read the words and reading the book, everything just really hits heart with so much, and I'm just so grateful. So thank you from my heart.
Good. Thanks for
Tammy,
joining us.
can I say something, Clyde?
Yeah, please
Yes,
do.
of course.
I have been waiting so long to hear Tammy. You got me over here in tears. Thank you.
I've listened
Thank
to,
you.
I
Wow.
listen, I write notes every day.
So cool.
Thank you so much for saying that. That
It
means so much.
means so much. You'll share your voice. You're a light. Stick and stay. I'm gonna hush now and cry.
Okay, well,
Oh
great.
my
Hey,
God.
thank you for joining
I'm
us,
happy
Tammy.
tears.
Yeah.
Thank you all,
I
because I
love it.
recognize
I
every
love
one
it.
of you.
Okay, let's continue. Hey, that's beautiful. Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Regina. We're gonna continue with the big book study now, and glad everyone's here. So here's what it says. You know, this obsession that they think they can somehow someday beat the game that we do. It says often suspect they are down for the count. It says how true this is. We're at the bottom of page 23. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, i.e., alcoholic. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. What does that word mean, lethargy? Well, guess what? I'm looking at the definition right now, and it says indifference, lack of interest, or abnormal drowsiness. So I think it means like someday this alcoholic is going to wake up and he's going to insert some willpower and solve the problem. He's going to stop being just so nonchalant about it, and he's going to apply his willpower and quit drinking. Okay? That's what people think. Quote at people that are not abnormal drinkers like we are. And here's what it says. The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. It says he has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. It says this tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. So I had totally lost control, had my willpower was absolutely useless long before I realized I had a problem, and long before everybody around me realized I had a problem. That's what it's telling us here. Do you guys relate to that? Yeah. Okay. So this next paragraph on page 24 is in italics. And anytime we see something in italics, that means we place extra emphasis on it. Bill's really trying to stress the point here. So we're going to pay attention to this. It says, the fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure means not really well understood. It says, have lost the power of choice and drink. It means I don't have a choice. Our so-called willpower, it's so-called willpower, becomes practically non-existent. It says we are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. Can you relate to that? We have no
I
defense.
can definitely relate to that. Yeah. And when it talks when it talks about how I tried to play the tape through. I tried to play the tape through. And after a while, that didn't even work anymore, you know, because I couldn't even bring into my mind that suffering and that humiliation, you know, and don't and big and yeah, and I was defenseless against the first drink, so I just fell for it every time, you know.
Yep.
And this is actually the statement that lets us know that we can't always think the drink through. You know, I thought that was one technique. You know, that was a technique that I was able to use for a while. But since the problem centers in my mind eventually caught on to that one and said, I'm going to try something else. And he was eventually going to get me on that one, you know?
Yeah. So even though I'm sober when I take that first drink, and I know there's going to be some very negative consequences, I still can't stop myself. My mind convinces me that it's okay. You need this ease and comfort. You can pull it off this time. I just can't stop myself. I cannot stop. My mind tells me it's okay. It says, and I have no willpower. Here's what it says. Actually, let's continue reading the next paragraph. Check this out. It says the almost certain consequences. Okay, I know. I know this is going to end bad. Okay, the almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. It says if these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time, we shall handle ourselves like other people. It says there is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. So Bill's making an analogy here, like everybody here, I'm sure, knows that if you put your hand on a hot stove, it's going to burn, it's going to hurt, and you're not going to do it. We're smart enough to not do that, okay? And so we're going to get burnt and hurt really bad if we take a drink, and we know it, but we do it anyway.
Because of the crazy mind, we still had this crazy mind saying, not this time, it's not that high, it's
Yep.
not going to hurt you this time.
Yes, it's in the mind. Bingo, Regina. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind. Yes. This is part of the facts about ourselves too that we want to be armed with. So here's what the alcoholics. So here, this book is written so well. I mean, I'm already thinking ahead, knowing how this relates to me, and I read, and it's like, oh, he's saying the exact same thing I'm thinking already. So let's go ahead and read it. It says the alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time. So here's how," just like Regina just said. Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. Says, how often have some of us begun drinking this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, for God's sake, how did I ever get started again? Only to have that thought supplanted by, well, I'll stop with the sixth drink, or what's the use anyhow? So that's the what's, the F-its. At that point, it's like, well, I started now, so I'm just gonna keep it rolling. I may as well get good and drunk. What's the use anyhow? So this is what happens. It's absolute insanity. We know we're gonna have terrible consequences, and yet we drink anyway. It is literally insanity. So can everyone here relate to that? If you can relate, you're a real alcoholic.
Definitely. Definitely.
We got mark that page. Gotta mark that page. Remember, this is the second time in the book. In Bill's story, he gets the F it. And this is where it's at in the big book where we get the F it. Could you read that again? That's
Yeah.
called the F it, if you wanted to know what they are.
Yeah.
Take one drink and then say,
Go ahead.
what the hell? I might as well go all the way. How many
Yeah.
times have I done that? I can identify with what the hell? I might as well go all the way. You
Yeah.
know?
Yep. That's it. The efforts. Okay. So here's what happens to us. Again, this is more about being armed with the facts about ourselves. These are the facts about us as alcoholics. And here's what happens. It says when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, like me, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. So he's telling us that human aid isn't going to solve my problem. And unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane. So I am in a real predicament here. I'm either going to die or go insane if I'm not locked up,
Yeah.
and unless I get some help that's beyond human aid. It says these stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions, that's thousands, of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. So we want to stop, but we just can't do it. We can't do it. These are more facts about us. So many want to stop.
And you know what, Clyde? What you just what you just stated, right? About either going insane or being locked up as opposed to drinking. That I had got so sick that neither one of those sounded like a bad deal. It didn't even sound like a bad deal.
Yeah.
You know,
I've been
I'll
there.
go through with it anyway. Fucking getting locked up. Oh, getting locked up or go insane. That didn't even sound like a bad deal. Ain't that something?
Yeah, I felt so worthless.
Yeah. Come on in and share, Regina.
I it's got a pause right here in this section right here where it says he has probably placed himself. So it seems like it's not something that somebody has done to me or somebody has done for me. It is something that I have done to myself. I
Mhm.
placed myself there beyond human aid. And
Yeah.
and the consequences of having gotten myself to that point where that line is drawn and I stepped over it, human aid
Yeah.
cannot help me.
Mhm.
Wow. And it says that if human aid can't help me, maybe I need to be locked up. Maybe that's the answer. Or death, maybe that's the answer. Or just going permanently insane. Permanently insane? Do you hear that, Clyde?
Yeah.
And that's the way I think that my life would be had I not taken these steps.
Yeah.
I would be living in a life permanently insane,
Insane.
making choices that's damaging myself, others, in a path of just destruction. That's crazy for me to do when I have knowledge that I could do better and I have the solution that I could do better. And the understanding that it's not even within the power of myself, but I have to go and reach out for a power greater than me. So I have the solution. It's right in front of me. We're coming up to it, aren't we, Clyde?
We are. We're learning. We've learned.
And we know what that what that human aid is because it already talked about that. The human aid was our family and friends, the
Yeah.
doctors, the lawyers, the
Mm-hmm.
counselors, and
Mm-hmm.
and and the priests. That was the human aid that was trying to help us. Everything else was trying to help us, but we needed something more powerful than that. You know, we need a power greater than ourselves.
What blows my mind is that it says with probably himself. What did he say? And where did he say he has probably placed himself?
Yeah.
It's
I
probably
did
placed
Place
this. I
myself.
did
Yeah.
this.
behind human aid.
You
Yeah.
know, accountability. Face it, Regina. You did this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
I
you,
did.
Clyde, for letting
Mhm.
me
Yeah,
helping me to see that.
Thank you, Regina. And you guys were in luck. We're going to learn about a certain American businessman on the next page that got human aid and it failed him. If human aid didn't work, we're going to learn all about it. So we're going to learn now. They're going to tell us very plain what the solution. It says there is a solution, and it's at the top of page 25 in italics. There is a solution. Here it is. Almost none of us liked the self-searching. So sounds like a 4-step inventory. The leveling of our pride. Now that is really all 12 steps by surrendering our will and our life to God through steps 1 through 3, for doing the 4th and 5th step inventory and sharing, and then doing 6 and 7, asking God to help us, and 8 and 9, making amends, and step 10, 11, 12, all of it, the leveling of our pride and the confession of our shortcomings. So almost none of us like that. It sounds like a lot of work, which the process requires for its successful consummation. So the solution really is the 12 steps. But we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. Okay. So we're convinced that our life was hopeless and futile. And we see that it worked in others. So it says, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, all of this stark and ugly stuff was solved in these first 100 people. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. So that's what this is, a simple kit of spiritual tools. It says, we have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. So that's a result of taking these 12 steps. And here's the solution. This is the description of the solution. This next paragraph. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. That's the solution, a deep and effective spiritual experience. It says the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for which we could never do by ourselves. So there's the solution. Spiritual experience. That's the solution to our problem. And then it says down below, fully explained, Appendix 2. You know what? I think we should read that. When we see the asterisk there, we
Hey,
should.
Clyde, before we read that, I just want to mention how wonderfully this was written, because when you first started out at the top of the paragraph, it says, you know, none of us wanted to none of us wanted to deal with the leveling of our pride, you know,
Right.
and to make confession and to change, you know, to change those things right there. And what the program did was, because if you would have told me that that's what you wanted me to do, I would have never done it. But you disguised it in the 12 steps. You disguised it in the 12 steps. And
Yeah.
that I said that I would give a try. You know, I would do. Read those things off again, Clyde. And just tell me if someone came to you and said, this is what they did, or this is what we wanted you to do, that you'd volunteer for that.
Yeah. Okay. So check this out. Let's say you come to me and you say, "Hey, I want to recover from alcoholism. What do I need to do?" And I say, "Okay, there is a solution. And here it is. Almost none of us liked." So I would be telling you, self-searching, you'd have to do some self-searching, the leveling of your pride, and the confession of your shortcomings if you want the process to have successful consummation with this process. So are
Wow.
you ready to do self-searching and leveling your pride and confessing your shortcomings? Are you ready to do that? And a lot of
Yeah, I'll
people,
be back, man. I'll check with you later.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
check with you later.
exactly. Yeah, I'll get back to you tomorrow. And meanwhile, I'm headed straight for the bar. It's like, I'm not doing that. Are you kidding me? That sounds like that sounds embarrassing. That sounds like work. That sounds like
Hey,
I don't want
Clyde,
to be part of
you
that.
know how I would say that sounds worse than religion.
Yeah,
I
I'd
say,
rather go to church than do that.
religion is easier than that. All I gotta do is pray, or whatever.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Oh man.
But here's the good news though. It says almost none of us liked all that, but we saw that it really worked in others and had come to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. So it's a choice, and it's a tough one. If you're a real alcoholic like me, it's like, well, it worked for these people. Maybe I'll try it, but man, I don't know. I don't like the sound of that. It's like a coin toss for me, 50-50 deal, right?
Yeah.
So, so you do see how the 12 steps are disguised in there, right?
Yes, yes, they are. So that makes it sound a little easier, they disguised it, snuck it in there on
It
us.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll admit that I'm powerless. I'll say that there's a God or a power greater than myself, and I'll turn my will and life over to Him. But that other stuff, when you're actually doing that, if you're doing it sincerely anyway, but that stuff that you're talking about, that's hard. That's none of your business,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the nerve of you, come to me and ask me to do something like that.
Yes. Yeah. Steps 4 through 9 are big ones. That's what they're really talking about. The self-searching, leveling of our pride, and confession of shortcomings. That's really steps 4 through 9 right there. And those are, a lot of people get stuck, do the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. And you can see why that would be a sticking point, and it is for a lot of people. And the 9th step, a lot of people get stuck on that one too. There's more pride leveling that takes place there that people get hung up on. So
Yeah.
yeah, so here's the good news. So that's the solution, this spiritual experience. It says that we've had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. So what exactly is a spiritual experience? There's an asterisk, and it says it's fully explained in Appendix 2. So I think we should refer back to Appendix 2, which is page 567 in the back of the big book. And you'll recall on page 14 in the big book, Bill explained his spiritual experience to us. And then he also wrote an appendix in the back of the book to further explain. See, it says fully explained in Appendix 2 what a spiritual experience is. So let's go ahead and read about it. What this is. This is the solution, by the way. It says, Appendix 2, spiritual experience. The terms spiritual experience, well, I'm on page 567 in the back of the big book. The terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which, upon careful reading, shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So the personality change, we heard that term earlier in the doctor's opinion. They called it a psychic change earlier. But so something our personality is going to be changed. That's what this means, having a spiritual experience. It says, yet it is true that our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. So you don't have to have this white light experience that Bill explained. His spiritual experience was really profound and jolted him into a whole different, it was an experience that really had some power behind it and really shook things up for him in a big way. And it was a permanent change that took place in him. So it says happily for everyone, that doesn't have to be your experience. So, Mama Bear, did you want to share?
Yes, I would love to love out a mama bear, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. This definitely reminds me of the good news, renewing of the mind that comes with a spiritual awakening, a spiritual uh, experience. So the renewing of the mind. That's all that says to me, and I love it. I love the good news, and to me, that's the good news. Thank you very much for letting me share.
Great, thanks for sharing with us, Mama Bear. Glad you're here. So we'll continue reading about this spiritual experience. It says in the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. So like Bill's. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. So that's what Bill had. That was his experience. He had a big spiritual experience just like that. And so we keep reading here, and it tells us that among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, so this was added after the book was written, there were between 70 and 100 recovered alcoholics at the time of publication on this book, 70 to 100. So now he added this later, and there's thousands of alcoholics that have recovered. And it says, among our rapidly growing membership of thousands of alcoholics, such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. So they do happen to some recovered alcoholics, but not the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Quite often, friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes. So this is little aha moments, spiritual awakenings. Instead of a big spiritual experience, these are little aha moments that are developing slowly over time. These are spiritual awakenings. And it says he finally realizes, after a series of aha moments and small changes, that he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life. It's the sum of all these aha moments and smaller spiritual awakenings. That such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. So something beyond human aid has done this. This unsuspected inner resource is this thing that was there that I wasn't even aware of within me. It's this power greater than me that's within me that I wasn't even really aware of, that I now am identifying as my power greater than myself that solved my problem, that gave me this profound alteration in my reaction to life. Regina, you had your hand up. Would you like to share? Come on in. Okay.
So I had to get back to the screen. I'm all in the dictionary and everything.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at where you had read about in the beginning where it says personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcohol.
Mhm.
So I checked out what personality is, and personality, it says, is the collection of characteristics that make a person unique, which includes, catch this, which includes how they think, how they feel, and how they behave. So all of these components of myself, of an individual that's coming into sobriety, their thinking changes, the way they feel about life and situations change, the way, and because of those changes in the mind, the behavior begins to change. So I don't take that sucker drink.
Wow. What a catch.
And then
Man.
you know what, you know what else,
Oh, thank you,
Clyde,
thank you
you
so
said
much.
what I really like. You said it's the, like, these little, it's accomplished by moments, it's accomplished by days, by months, by years. It's like taking baby steps. And you know what it brought me to? It brought me to John F. Kennedy, where he said, I think it was him that said, when they landed on the moon, what did he say? One step for,
Oh yeah. Step forward.
and a giant step for mankind.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what it put me in the mind of.
One small step for humanity
Yeah.
and a giant step
Giant
for
step.
mankind.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's what it made
But
me
for
think of.
what you just brought us, Regina, is so important. Yeah, we need to hold on to that. Please put that in the chat. That was so simply put, you know? That was so simply put. A change in my thinking, a change in the way that I feel about life, and in the change and a change in the way that I do things. Yeah, that's it. That's what I needed.
That's it. Yeah, bingo.
Thinking, my feeling, and the way I do things. My thinking, my feeling, and the way I do things. My thoughts, my feelings, and the way I do things.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
that we need.
That was brilliant,
Okay.
Regina. I gotta hand it to you. Wow, that was divine. That was
You're
inspired.
gonna hear me using that one now. You're gonna hear me using that one. I'm feeling it.
Me too. Yeah, we're gonna be plagiarizing you, Regina.
This is what needs to happen. This
That's
is what
God, I
needed to
pray.
happen for me. Yeah, this is what needed to happen for me. You know, I needed to change the way that I thought, the way that I felt, and the way that I did things.
Yeah.
I think anybody could understand that. You know?
Oh yeah. Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
Well, who was that remembered that quote? Who was that remembered that quote? I forgot. What's it? I gotta write that down. One
That was
small leap
Oh,
for.
one small step for
for
it was
man.
one small leap
Yeah.
for human wait, one small step
For
for
man.
humanity. And
A
yeah, for
giant
man
leap.
and
And
huge leap for humanity.
Was it Neil Armstrong? I could be wrong.
Yeah, check. That might be it. Oh, I'm just gonna
It's
put
one
the
of those
quote. I'm gonna
astronauts.
put the quote in there and see who it is. Okay, I'm through. I'm done. I'm gonna be listening. I'm learning.
Yeah, one
Me
small
too.
step for humanity and a giant step for mankind. One small step for humanity and a giant step for mankind.
It is Neil Armstrong.
Is it?
Yeah, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Yes.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so wow. Okay, so we've tapped this inner resource, unsuspected, like hidden resource. It's been there all along. We just weren't really aware of it. It was unsuspected. And so I identify that now with my conception of a power greater than myself. So on the next paragraph says that most of us think this awareness, now I'm aware of this inner resource of a power greater than ourselves, is the essence of spiritual experience. essence means most important part. So just being aware that my higher power is within me is the essence, the most important part of my spiritual experience. It says our more religious members call it God consciousness. And so that's what happened to me. It just, FYI, I had a giant spiritual experience in December of 2023 when this hit me as a result of listening to the Joe and Charlie tapes and their description of we agnostics. And when they were wrapping it up on page 55, it occurred to me that, oh my gosh, God does dwell within me. He's been there all along, and here he is. I mean, I had this just amazing, unbelievable moment of clarity about God being within me, living in me and through me. And it really was just a powerful experience. It's with me to this day. That's when I established God consciousness on a very big level, just December of 2023.
Wow.
Clyde, are you saying then that God within me is the hope that I have?
Yes.
The inner resource, that inner resource is God in me. Because at the top of page 568, it says inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. For the resource that I have within me to maintain or to have a spiritual sobriety, that inner resource is God in me, the hope of glory, his glory, not mine.
Yeah, it says.
Yeah, just on what Clyde said. You see how he had his experience. It wasn't, and to show the differences, it wasn't like that for me. And I've shared many times. It's coming slow over time. It took time for me, and just like the book says, when I had changed to the point where it was remarkable, somebody else actually told me that I had changed. Somebody that I trusted and who had been watching me closely had stopped me and told me that I had changed. I think that it was at the time that I was actually telling them how I was handling the situation differently, that they told me that I had changed. But I still got a long way to go. But that's the difference. Clyde's happened like boom, and mine's is very slow and gradual, and it still works. It is happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Somebody once said that it's a marathon. Like, I know there's a scripture about running the good race. It's a marathon, and we're all training under our higher power but we have to commit to that daily training to, show up every day as strong as possible in a good, healthy condition. And that's, renewing our mind, especially when, first thing in the morning. I've found that to been the biggest changing factor in my recovery these days is understanding before I even start the day, getting out of bed, my first thoughts have to be where I'm guided and by whom, has gifted me just the ability to get up and be better today. And I can start that at any time, any part of the day when I, start to fade off. And I do seek reassurance in others, when their program or their way of living under their higher power is strong, and it reassures me that I can keep going.
Yeah.
Well,
Right, great.
can I say
And
something?
just to elaborate
I'm
on
gonna
that,
shut up.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to be quiet after this, but I'm getting so excited. Oh, Kelly, that was so powerful. You made me think of when you said running the race. That puts me in the mind of the movement, the step, And then you said about the first thought. So the first thought in the morning being on God, and then taking that first ability. You said the ability to get up. I put my feet off of the bed and I'm up and running. I am where, it's said a lot of times, be where your feet are.
Yeah, I heard that.
Be where your feet are. And if I start my day with my mind on God and I'm have that prayer, consecrate the day to Him, and then I step out, and my first step, that first step is going to lead me throughout the whole day. And then you just gave me the idea. I got to take this away of being where your feet are, being in the moment, being present. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I'm about over here. I'm about getting happy.
Yeah. and and thank you. And just to elaborate on these spiritual experiences and the spiritual awakening, you see, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm not sure. But I know that I've had spiritual awakenings. You know, I know that I've had those aha moments where I realized something that's been right in front of me for years, you know? And I often share about when I sincerely took the third step, something did happen to me. I tell you guys, I cried like I never cried before. And that was definitely a sign, if nothing else, I had finally abandoned myself to God and was sincere about turning my will and my life over to Him. So, you know, that was one experience too. But I'm not sure if that's the big one. You know, still. But I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for it and for all of them. But that was the biggest one. And I share that with people, you know, people who know me know about that. I mean, it was like it was, oh man, it was an explosion. It was an explosion, and I don't even think I had any more tears in me when I was finished, you know, because that's how bad I really knew that I need to do that and wanted to do it, you know. And after doing it so many times before, taking the third step just with my mouth, but not with my heart, you know. And yeah, so yeah, just to elaborate on that for me a little
Okay.
bit.
Nice.
Wow, getting some great experiences here from you guys, from the group. And so here is the keys to having this spiritual experience. And it sounds like we're having them. We've had spiritual awakenings and some of us spiritual experiences. And here's what it says about it further. It says most emphatically, that means definitely no loopholes. That means for real, for sure. We wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. So have an open mind. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. So being closed minded, that is what can close you off from having this experience, okay? It says, we find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. That applies to you, everybody. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. So remember the acronym WHO, WHO, willingness, honesty, open-mindedness. These are indispensable. And here's what closed-mindedness is. It gives us this quote from Herbert Spencer. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. That means your mind is snapped shut. You have made up your mind and nothing is going to come in and change it. That is going to keep you in everlasting ignorance. So that's what a spiritual experience is. Okay.
And you know what, Clyde? That quote right there, it fits perfectly, you know, with what we just read. That it says that the willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are indispensable. And I had to look that word up. I thought I knew what it meant, but it actually means that it must come from within. You can't give it to me. Nobody could loan it to me or give it to me. It has to be my own. Isn't that something? Your honesty can't get me honest.
Right.
I must have my own. My own. Indispensable means that it must only come from me. So nobody could loan it to me, sell it to me, you know, or give it to me. that honesty, the open-mindedness, and the willingness must come from me and me only. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Okay.
You the one
So
got yourself there.
I think that's a really
Remember?
amazing
Exactly.
point. I think that's a really amazing point, you know, when people suffer
Just look
from
up the word
they
indispensable. That's what it said.
well, they don't
Look up
want to go on,
indispensable. It says that it must come from me. Yeah.
they don't want to go on in the program
Go
because they
ahead.
don't want to give over to believe in something. And that's basically it. You know, that's the willingness to give over that part of my own understanding. That's where you might, like, in the future, like, direct somebody to say, this is how you find it. You find it from within. It's not because we're telling you this is it, this is your higher power, this is that. You know, there's a lot of times people don't have that understanding. So, you know, you have to feel comforted, and it changes. I know you know, it develops. You become closer and more connected to what that gift of, you know, understanding becomes. And I don't know if I'm making a point, but it is a beautiful part of the recovery program. I think, you know, learning that spiritual freedom.
Making a good point.
And I guess that kind of means that no one can give it to me, so no one can take those things away from me either.
Hey,
Wow.
hey,
Wow.
that's full circle right
No
there.
one can cause me to start being dishonest. Yeah, yeah.
That's
No
full
one else can
circle.
close my mind. Only I can close my mind. And no one else can make me unwilling once I am willing. I stay as willing as I want to be one day at a time. You know, it's up to me, right? Wow. Just saw that.
Daily reprieve.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to continue now at the bottom of page 25. Now we know what the solution is. It's a vital spiritual experience. And now they're going to tell us there's no middle of the road solution. We can either take that solution or we have one other option. There's no, you know, half and half or 3/4, 1/4. Let's see what they tell us about this. At the bottom of page 25, it says, if you are as seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle of the road solution. It says we were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into the region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but two alternatives. So there's two choices set before us right now. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out the consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. The bitter end, that's getting locked up, that's going insane, that's dying. That's a bitter end, just blotting ourselves out, intolerable, and running that through. Or the other, to accept spiritual help. It says, this we did because we honestly wanted to and were willing to make the effort. So that's our two choices as an alcoholic. We can either get to accept spiritual help and recover, or we can just continue on until the bitter end and die. There's no middle of the road. It's not like, okay, well, I'll drink part of the time and blot out, and then I'll take a little spiritual help, and then I'll blot out a little more, and then I'll get spirit. It's not going to work like that for us. It's one or the other. Okay. We can't teeter in between. So I like the spiritual solution myself. I don't know about you guys, but it's suiting me just fine. How about you guys? You liking the spiritual solution because
Spiritual.
you want to and you're honest and willing to make the effort? Yeah.
I bet on the other side. I want the spiritual.
That is the better way. It's the better way. You know?
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think so. So I'll tell you, this next guy that we're going to read about is the first person in the AA community. I don't know that he ever became an AA, but he is the first guy that got sober using that's associated with AA that use the Oxford group and their technique for having a spiritual experience. And it was a 6-step program at the time. And we're going to learn all about this guy. His name is Roland Hazard, a very big time businessman. His grandfather and great grandfather's names were Roland Hazard. He was the third one. That's why he's Roland Hazard the third. And he's the one that Dr. Young got sober. He using psychiatry in Europe. We're going to read about it right now. So just keep in mind, I'll tie it all together later. This is Roland Hazard, the first guy, and then he introduced through a meeting in a courtroom with Sebra Graves and another friend of theirs, wealthy, high bigwig guy, Ebby Thatcher, and so he ended up turning Ebby on to this Oxford group technique. And Ebby got sober in late 1934, and then Ebby's the one that met with Bill in November of 1934 and told Bill all about getting sober with this spiritual experience. So this is the first guy that used the Oxford group that taught it and introduced Ebby to it, and then Ebby introduced it to Bill. So here's the story. A certain American businessman, this is Roland Hazard, had ability, good sense, and high character. That's an understatement. This guy was a big time, like his family, this guy and his family were like titans, big time business people. For years, he had floundered from one sanitarium to another. He had consulted the best known American psychiatrists. So he's bouncing all over the country, desperately trying to get better from alcoholism. He's had a problem for a long time. He just cannot deal with it. Then he had gone to Europe, placing himself in the care of a celebrated physician, the psychiatrist, Dr. Young, who prescribed for him. Though experience had made him skeptical, he finished his treatment with unusual confidence. So Dr. Young treated this guy, and I think it was in Switzerland, for on and off for like a year. And it says his physical and mental condition were unusually good. So he was better using regular psychiatry. He said, above all, he believed he had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of his mind and its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. So he thought, hey, I got this figured out now. Thanks, Dr. Young. You explained all why I'm alcoholic and what the problem is. I got it figured out now. Awesome. Well, guess what? Nevertheless, he was drunk in a short time. More baffling still, he could give himself no satisfactory explanation for his fall. So he returned to this doctor whom he admired. So he relapsed, he started drinking again, and he goes back to Dr. Young and asked him point blank, says, why he could not recover. He says, Dr. Young, what the heck? He wished above all things to regain self-control. He seemed quite rational and well-balanced with respect to other problems, yet he had no control whatever over alcohol. Why was this? That's the question. So he wanted to know, Doc, why can I not control my drinking? He begged the doctor to tell him the whole truth, and he got it. It says, in the doctor's judgment, he was utterly hopeless. Hopeless means things are bad and they're never going to get better. He could never regain his position in society, and he would have to place himself under lock and key. There it is again. Or hire a bodyguard if he expected to live long. That was a great physician's opinion. So Dr. Young told Roland, he said, you're hopeless, man. He said, you don't have a chance. He said, you have no control. You'll never regain your position. You're too bad. But here's the encouraging thing. This man still lives and is a free man. He does not need a bodyguard, nor is he confined. He can go anywhere on this earth where other free men may go without disaster, provided he remains willing to maintain a certain simple attitude. So, some of our alcoholic readers may think they can do without spiritual help. Let us tell you the rest of the conversation our friend had with his doctor. So here's what they said. The doctor said, telling Roland, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. Chronic, that means like permanent, like you're high level alcoholic. Remember, main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind? This guy's got it real bad. And Dr. Young told him, I've never seen one single case recover where the state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. This guy's a bad case, Roland is. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. So he thought, oh my gosh, it's over. I'm doomed. So he said to the doctor, is there no exception? And the doctor said, yes, replied the doctor, there is. He said, exceptions to cases such as yours have been occurring since early times. But here's the catch. Listen to this. Here and there, once in a while, alcoholics have had what are called vital spiritual experiences. It says, to me, these occurrences are phenomena. That means very rare, very unusual. Once in a while, here and there, they have this phenomena of having a vital spiritual experience. And what it is, it says they appear to be in the nature of huge emotional displacements and rearrangements. Ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men, are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of conceptions and motives begin to dominate them. Sounds like a spiritual experience to me. In fact, I have been trying to produce some such emotional rearrangement within you. With many individuals, the methods which I employed are successful, but I have never been successful with an alcoholic of your description. Now look, there's that asterisk again. It says for amplification, see Appendix 2. We just read that. So they're telling us again, the solution is a phenomena. It's very rare, here and there, once in a while, with somebody as alcoholically minded as you are, but it does happen. And it's that spiritual experience is what it is. And so it continues, he says, upon hearing this, so Roland says he was somewhat relieved, for he reflected that after all, he was a good church member. So Roland's thinking, oh, hey, great. I go to church. I can have a spiritual experience. This hope, however, was destroyed by the doctors telling him that while his religious convictions were very good, in his case, they did not spell the necessary vital spiritual experience. So that just going to church and praying wasn't going to be enough. He was going to need to take the 12 steps, basically, is what he's telling him. So I think we're running out of time now. I'd love to keep reading, but we'll pick this up next week. Do you guys have any comments about our friend here, Roland Hazard, and what Dr. Young has explained to him? Or anything else we studied today?
I enjoyed everything. I really paid
No,
attention.
but Clyde, what we want to do is, we're gonna pick up on that American Businessman again next week, and we'll read it again, and we'll really take a good look at it. And anybody that's here, we invite you to go and read those. There's 3 stories. There's Roland has it. Then there's the other the retiree, right? There's 3, right, Clyde?
Oh, well, no, that's in the next chapter. Yeah, in this chapter, there is a solution. It's just the story of Roland Hazard. It's and more about alcoholism. That's where we read about Jim and the guy that was retired, Quit
Yeah,
drinking at
yeah, Jim,
35.
Fred, and
For
and
Jim,
the guy
Fred,
at 25 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the three in next chapter. Yep.
But please read ahead, and see what you find there, and we want to hear it from you guys too. You know, we want you to cheat on the test, kind of. You know, and go ahead and read ahead of where we're at now, and let us know what you find, because you may see something that we don't see. You know, in these paragraphs, and that's what we do here. All right, great. So, that's gonna end the podcast for today.
Wow,
Before we
thank
go,
you,
Clyde's
sir.
gonna read
I
us
love
out,
the way
right,
you
Clyde?
sound. I love the way you sound. You're fantastic.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. Glad that you're here, and we'll be here every week. Here every week. You want
Yeah.
to read us out, Clyde?
Yeah, I will. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you so much for being here, everyone. Thanks for coming to the Cousin Jonathan and Clyde the Rocketman Big Book study. And thank you for your participation. We really appreciate it. So this podcast will be available by this Friday. You can join us on Telegram for updates. And we'll end with this, the Big Book on page 164. It says, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. And so we're going to close the meeting now by reciting the Lord's Prayer together. So I'm going to ask everyone to go ahead and unmute. You guys can all unmute yourselves. And who brought us together for this great Big Book study today?
Our
Our
Father,
Father,
who
who
art
art
in
in heaven,
heaven,
Our Father,
hallowed be thy name.
which art in
Thy
heaven,
Thy
kingdom
kingdom
come,
hallowed be
come,
thy
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 name.
will
will
be
be
done on
done
Thy
earth.
kingdom
on earth
come.
as it is
Heaven.
in
Thy
heaven.
will
Give
be
us
done.
this day our
This
daily
day
bread,
our daily
and
bread,
forgive us
and
our
Trespasses,
forgive us
trespasses.
our
We
trespasses
forgive
as
those who
we forgive
trespass
those
against
who
us.
trespass
Lead us
against
not
us.
into
Lead
temptation,
us not
but
into
deliver us from
temptation,
evil.
and
For
deliver
thine
us
is
from
the
evil.
kingdom and the
For thine
power,
is the kingdom and the
glory
power and the
forever.
glory.
Amen.
power,
Amen.
and
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
amen.